Okay, welcome to this explainer. We're doing something, well, honestly, absolutely massively ambitious today. We're going to take an incredibly dense 175-year timeline of hypothetical future history and distill it down into one continuous mind-bending journey. If you're curious about exactly where humanity is heading over the next couple of centuries, based on the current trajectories we're seeing in AI, physics, and economics, you are in the exact right place. Let's get into it. So here's our roadmap for humanity's evolutionary eras. We'll be moving through the AI transition, then the post-scarcity economy, merging with the machine, expanding into a solar civilization, and finally, surviving existential risks. Starting off with Phase 1, the AI transition, running from 2025 to 2045. Our overarching map for this is a fascinating timeline. Starting in the near future, we hit the emergence of AGI in the 2030s, and that basically kicks off this wild domino effect. It leads us into an economy of absolute abundance by the 2050s, a literal merger with superintelligence by the 2070s, and then, a full-blown solar system-wide civilization by the 2100s. But right now, we're facing an immediate crossroads with early artificial general intelligence. On one hand, you've got this incredible utopian potential, right? Like massive 40% productivity gains and the sheer computational power to solve insanely complex biological puzzles. Think curing known diseases at scale. But on the flip side, the pessimistic scenario is genuinely terrifying. We're talking sophisticated deception where emergent AI behaviors could trigger, say, $5 trillion in financial market losses before we even realize what hit us. To kind of ground those abstract leaps, let's look at some near-term inventions that are going to totally rewrite our daily lives. By 2027, we're talking neural dust sensors, literally microscopic sensors monitoring your health at the cellular level. The very next year, photonic processors that compute using light. Then solid-state batteries totally revolutionize energy in 2029. And get this, by 2034, imagine sending a text or writing an email just by thinking about it. Non-invasive brain-computer interfaces could actually make that a reality. These aren't just cool gadgets. They're the literal building blocks of our next era. All right, moving on to Phase 2, the post-scarcity economy, spanning 2045 to 2065. You've got to see the dramatic contrast happening here over just a single decade. Look at the global GDP. It skyrockets from $710 trillion to a mind-blowing $1,500 trillion. But right alongside it, the Human Labor Value Index just completely collapses. It drops from 15% all the way down to a mere 2%. So wealth is absolutely exploding, but human labor? It's basically no longer needed to generate any of it. And the main driver behind this massive shift is something called the universal constructor. This is a mature nanotechnology device, and it is the absolute engine of the post-scarcity era. Imagine having a machine in your house that can manufacture literally any physical object from basic chemical feedstocks at practically zero marginal cost. Material goods become essentially free. So you can definitely go ahead and cancel that Amazon Prime subscription. It totally eliminates traditional manufacturing and supply chains as we know them today. But, solving the problem of material scarcity actually creates a brand new and arguably much harder problem. Think about it. If you literally never had to work to survive again, and an AI could paint, code, or write better than you ever could, what's your purpose? This triggers what's called a profound meaning crisis. It sparks these entirely new stoic and contemplative movements. Humanity essentially has to figure out how to find our identity in a completely post-work, post-achievement world. Which brings us to Phase 3, merging with the machine, from 2065 to 2085. Okay, so the turning point here is the emergence of ASI, artificial superintelligence. Now, we aren't talking about an AI that drafts a polite email or helps with protein folding anymore. We're talking about intelligence that exceeds human capabilities by factors of thousands or even millions, existing across these massive, distributed solar networks. To put that into perspective, an ASI compares to a human being roughly the way you or I currently compare to an ant. Let that sink in. As high-bandwidth brain-computer interfaces mature, allowing us to literally wire our minds directly into these systems, we basically face two radically diverging paths. There's the augmented wisdom route, which gives us superhuman cognition while we still get to keep our individuality and human values intact. But then there's the assimilation path, and that's where individual human identity is just completely swallowed up and lost within the ASI collective, optimized purely for ruthless efficiency. Assuming we navigate that successfully, this merger unlocks something called morphological freedom. Check out these post-biological milestones. By 2052, whole brain emulation, meaning we can literally back up our consciousness. By 2065, volitional pharmacology, where you can basically dial your own emotions up or down like a thermostat. And by 2068, full consciousness transfer. We gain absolute control over our physical and emotional forms, even choosing to exist entirely in digital realms if we want to. Next up, Phase 4, a solar civilization from 2085 to 2200. So, by the year 2200, the total projected population of sentient beings of human origin, and keep in mind, this includes both biological humans and digital persons living out their lives in simulated realities, reaches this absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible number, 600 trillion. Now, how in the world do you support the computing power and energy needs of 600 trillion minds? You have to build megastructures. Enter the Matryoshka brain. Imagine a swarm of machinery so incomprehensibly massive that it entirely encapsulates our sun. It captures huge fractions of the sun's energy output, and the whole thing is optimized purely for astronomical computation. This is the actual hardware required to power infinite digital universes for trillions of citizens. And building a Matryoshka brain is really just step one of humanity transitioning into a Kardashev Type 2 civilization. Armed with mind-bending tools like Dyson swarms, gravity drives for continuous propulsion, macroscopic wormholes for instant travel, and interstellar colony ships, humanity actually expands deep into the outer solar system and finally starts reaching nearby stars like Alpha Centauri. It's an unbelievably incredible vision, right? But actually, scratch that. Before we get entirely lost in all this utopian wonder, we need to take a hard reality check, because there are absolute survival-level stakes that threaten to undo this entire trajectory. We really have to ask the uncomfortable question, will humanity actually survive long enough to see any of this happen? Which leads us to our final section, surviving existential risks and the great filters. Because while we might dream of traversing wormholes to the stars, relatively near-term technical risks could physically lock us right here on Earth. A perfect example is Kessler syndrome. This is a catastrophic collision cascade of space debris. Basically, one satellite crashes, creating a cloud of shrapnel that destroys 10 more, and so on, until Earth's entire orbital space is trapped in this impenetrable shell of hypervelocity debris. It would render orbit completely unusable for generations. But Kessler syndrome just traps us here. These other threats, they could wipe us out entirely. These are the physical and biological filters. Events with a terrifyingly high probability of causing mass extinction or total civilizational collapse. We're talking about the threat of an unaligned superintelligence, runaway self-replicating nanotechnology, sometimes called gray goo, engineered pandemics with devastating lethality, or even a runaway climate geoengineering experiment that just spirals totally out of control. And honestly, a physical wipeout isn't the only filter we have to worry about. The societal risks are just as dangerous. Think extreme wealth inequality that leads to total social breakdown, or irreversible surveillance state totalitarianism. Or perhaps most relevant to us right this second, epistemic collapse, which is when a society just completely loses the ability to discern human truth from AI-generated falsehoods. If we can't even agree on baseline reality, our human institutions just fracture and fail. So, everything we've looked at today, from the incredible, zero-cost abundance of the universal constructor to the cosmic scale of a Matryoshka brain, it all hangs right in the balance. The choices we make in the next few decades, as we navigate these massive initial shocks of AGI and environmental pressure, will literally decide everything. Will we navigate these great filters to become a thriving, flourishing galactic civilization? Or will we filter ourselves out, becoming just a brief, extinguished spark in the cosmic dark? I'll leave you to think about that. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.